The boss froze when he heard the cleaning employee play his missing daughter's song. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Davenport mansion. But Frederick barely noticed. He never noticed much anymore. For 18 years, this house had been more tomb than home, a monument to everything he'd lost that rainy April morning when his daughter vanished without a trace. Frederick Davenport stood at 55, a man who'd built an empire with his bare hands, but couldn't protect the one thing that mattered. His footsteps echoed through the empty hallways as he made his evening rounds, a ritual born from years of solitude. Each room held ghosts: the sitting room where Sophie used to read her picture books, the kitchen where she'd helped him make pancakes on Sunday mornings, and worst of all, the grand parlor with its white-shrouded piano. He paused at the doorway, his hand gripping the frame until his knuckles turned white. The piano sat in the center of the room like a corpse at a wake, covered by a dusty white cloth that hadn't been moved in nearly 2 decades. He couldn't bear to look at it, but he couldn't bear to sell it either. It was all he had left of her. Sophie had been 10 when she disappeared, 10 years old, with her mother's dark eyes and a smile that could light up the darkest corner of his heart. She'd been learning a melody on that piano, an old, gentle song her mother had taught her before the cancer took her 2 years earlier. It was the only living memory Sophie had of her mom, and she'd practiced it obsessively, determined to play it perfectly. "Listen, Daddy, I almost got it right." Her voice still echoed in his mind, bright and full of life. Then one morning, she was gone. Just gone, like she'd never existed at all. Frederick had torn the city apart looking for her. He'd hired every private investigator on the East Coast, offered rewards that made headlines, plastered her photo on every bus stop and billboard he could find. The police had worked the case for months, then years, following leads that went nowhere. Child Services, FBI, he'd even consulted psychics in his desperation, though he'd never believed in such things. But the trail had gone cold. The hope had died. And Frederick had learned to live with the kind of pain that never really heals. It just becomes part of who you are. "Mr. Davenport." Frederick turned to find Leonard Price standing in the hallway, the elderly butler who'd served the family for over 30 years. Leonard had been there the day Sophie disappeared. He'd been the one to call the police when they realized she wasn't in her room, wasn't in the garden, wasn't anywhere. "Yes, Leonard. I apologize for disturbing you, sir, but I wanted to discuss the household staff situation." Leonard's voice was gentle, always careful around Frederick these days. "Mrs. Chen gave her notice last week. As you know, we need someone to help with the cleaning and general maintenance. The house is rather large for just the 2 of us to manage." Frederick waved his hand dismissively. "Do whatever you think is best. You always do. Actually, sir, I was hoping you might interview the candidates yourself. It's been some time since—" "Leonard." Frederick's voice came out harsher than he'd intended. He softened it. "I trust your judgment. Hire whoever you think is suitable. I don't have the energy for it." The old butler studied him for a moment, and Frederick saw the pity in his eyes. He hated that look, hated being treated like a broken thing that might shatter at any moment. But he supposed that's exactly what he was. "Very well, sir. I'll handle it." As Leonard turned to leave, Frederick called after him. "Leonard?" "Yes, sir. Thank you for everything, for staying all these years." Leonard's weathered face creased into a sad smile. "Where else would I go?" "Sir, this is my home too." After the butler left, Frederick climbed the stairs to his study, a room he'd practically lived in since Sophie's disappearance. Work had become his only escape, the only thing that filled the endless empty hours. His company had grown exponentially over the years, not because he was particularly driven, but because he had nothing else to do with his time. He sat at his desk and opened his laptop, but the screen blurred before his eyes. Instead, he found himself pulling open the bottom drawer, the one he never opened in front of anyone else. Inside was a small wooden box containing Sophie's things, her favorite hair ribbon, a drawing she'd made of the 2 of them holding hands, her last report card, all A's, of course. She'd been so proud of that. And at the bottom, a photograph, Sophie at the piano, her small hand stretched across the keys, concentrating so hard her tongue stuck out slightly. Frederick had taken it just a week before she vanished. She'd been wearing her favorite yellow dress, the one with the sunflowers. He traced her face with his finger, the way he'd done 1,000 times before. "Where are you, baby girl?" he whispered to the empty room. "Where did you go?" But the room offered no answers. It never did. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister Margaret. She'd been trying to get him to have dinner with her for weeks now. Probably another attempt to convince him to move on and start living again. Margaret meant well, he supposed, but she'd never understood. She'd never had children. She didn't know what it was like to have your heart ripped out and thrown away. He ignored the text. Outside, the sun finally dipped below the horizon, and darkness crept across the mansion's grounds. Frederick closed the wooden box and returned it to the drawer. Tomorrow would be another day, exactly like this one, and the day after that, and the day after that. He'd long ago accepted that this was his life now, an endless stretch of empty rooms and unanswered questions, punctuated only by the steady rhythm of work and the distant hope, growing fainter every year, that someday, somehow, he might finally know what happened to his little girl. The piano downstairs remained silent beneath its shroud, but that silence was about to be broken. The classified ad had been simple enough, seeking experienced housekeeper for private estate, room and board included, references required. Isabella Martinez had stared at it for a full 10 minutes before finally picking up the phone. She needed the job desperately. Her savings were down to almost nothing, and the small apartment she'd been renting was due for payment in a week. But it was more than that. Something about the ad had pulled at her, a feeling she couldn't quite name, like a whisper from somewhere deep inside telling her this was where she needed to be. Now, standing at the iron gates of the Davenport estate, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. The mansion loomed before her like something out of an old Gothic novel, all gray stone and tall windows that seemed to watch her approach. The ground stretched for acres, immaculately maintained despite the melancholy atmosphere that hung over the place like morning fog. Everything about it screamed money and isolation. Isabella adjusted the strap of her worn duffel bag and pressed the intercom button. "Yes," a cultured voice crackled through the speaker. "I'm here about the housekeeper position. Isabella Martinez." There was a pause. Then the gates swung open with a mechanical groan. The walk up the drive felt endless. Isabella focused on putting one foot in front of the other, trying to calm the strange flutter in her chest. She'd felt it before, this inexplicable anxiety mixed with something else, recognition. But that was impossible. She'd never been here before in her life, at least not that she could remember. The front door opened before she could knock. An elderly man in an impeccably pressed suit stood in the doorway, his expression kind but appraising. He had to be in his 70s, with silver hair and the bearing of someone who'd spent his entire life in service. "Miss Martinez, I presume. I'm Leonard Price, head of household." He extended his hand, and Isabella shook it, grateful for the warmth in his grip. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Price. Please come in." He stepped aside, and Isabella entered the foyer. She stopped breathing. The entrance hall was magnificent. Marble floors, a sweeping staircase, artwork that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. But it wasn't the grandeur that struck her. It was something else, a feeling of familiarity, like she'd walked through this door 1,000 times before, though she knew with absolute certainty she hadn't. "Miss Martinez, are you all right?" Isabella realized she'd been standing frozen, staring at the staircase. "Yes, sorry, it's beautiful." Leonard studied her for a moment, something flickering in his eyes that she couldn't read. "Indeed. Please, follow me to the kitchen. We can talk there." As they walked through the mansion, Isabella tried not to gawk, but it was impossible. Every room they passed seemed bigger than her entire apartment, yet underneath the obvious wealth, there was something sad about the place. The air felt heavy, stagnant, like a house that had stopped breathing years ago. The kitchen at least felt more human, large and modern but clearly used. Leonard gestured to a chair at the small breakfast table, and Isabella sat, clasping her hands in her lap to keep them from trembling. "Would you care for some tea?" "That would be lovely, thank you." As Leonard prepared the tea, Isabella took the opportunity to gather herself. She needed this job, whatever this strange feeling was. She couldn't let it mess this up for her. "So," Leonard said, setting a delicate china cup before her, "tell me about yourself, Miss Martinez. Your resume was rather sparse." Isabella had known this would be the hard part. I don't have much experience in private homes. I'll admit I've mostly worked in hotels and commercial cleaning, but I'm a hard worker, Mr. Price. I'm reliable, and I'm thorough. And your references. She took a breath. I can provide references from my previous employers, but they're not in domestic service. I understand if that's a problem. Leonard sipped his tea thoughtfully. What brings you to this position? Why leave hotel work? How much truth should she tell? Isabella decided on honesty, or at least as much as she could offer. I'm looking for something more stable, more permanent. I've moved around a lot in my life. I'd like to find a place where I can actually settle down for a while. Family? None. The word came out more bitter than she'd intended. She softened her tone. I grew up in an orphanage, never knew my parents. Something shifted in Leonard's expression. Not pity, exactly. More like understanding. I see. And you're comfortable living on the property. It can be quite isolating here. I prefer quiet, actually. Leonard set down his cup and leaned back, studying her with those sharp, kind eyes. Isabella had the distinct impression he was seeing far more than she was showing. Miss Martinez, I'm going to be frank with you. This is not an easy household, Mr. Davenport. The owner is a very private man. He's suffered tremendous loss, and he values his solitude. The work itself isn't particularly difficult, but the atmosphere can be challenging. Many people find it too depressing. I understand. Do you? This house has been in mourning for 18 years. That kind of grief seeps into the walls. Isabella met his gaze steadily. We all carry grief, Mr. Price. Some of us just hide it better than others. For a long moment, Leonard said nothing. Then, to her surprise, he smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. You're hired, Miss Martinez. What? Don't you need to check my references or have Mr. Davenport interview me? Mr. Davenport has given me full authority to make staffing decisions. As for your references, I'll check them, of course. But I've been reading people for 50 years, and I trust my instincts. He stood, extending his hand again. Welcome to Davenport Manor. Isabella shook his hand, relief flooding through her. Thank you. You won't regret this. I promise. I don't think I will. Now, let me show you to your quarters. You can start tomorrow if that suits you. As Leonard led her up a back staircase to the staff wing, Isabella tried to process what had just happened. She'd gotten the job, just like that. After years of struggling, of barely scraping by, she'd finally caught a break. So why did she feel like she was walking into something she didn't understand? The room Leonard showed her was simple but comfortable. A bed, a dresser, a small window overlooking the gardens. It was more than she'd had in years. Bathrooms down the hall, Leonard explained. Meals are at 7, noon, and 6. Though you're welcome to help yourself to anything in the kitchen, mister. Davenport typically keeps to himself, so you likely won't see much of him. Any questions? No, I think I've got it. Leonard paused at the door. Miss Martinez, one more thing. There's a room on the main floor. The grand parlor. There's a piano there, covered with a white cloth. Don't touch it. Don't uncover it, mister. Davenport is very particular about that room. Isabella nodded, though the mention of the piano sent another strange shiver through her. Understood. After Leonard left, Isabella sat on the bed and let out a long breath. Through the window, she could see the sun setting over the gardens, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful, peaceful. She should have felt happy, relieved, safe. Instead, she felt like she'd just stepped into a mystery she wasn't meant to solve. That night, as Isabella unpacked her few belongings, she found herself humming. It was a melody she'd known her whole life, though she had no idea where it came from. It just existed in her mind, as natural as breathing. She didn't know that 2 floors below, Frederick Davenport had finally left his study and was walking through the darkened halls of his mansion, as he did every night before bed. She didn't know that their paths were about to cross in a way that would shatter everything both of them thought they knew. She only knew that tomorrow, she would begin her new life in this strange, sad house, and nothing would ever be the same. Isabella had been working at Davenport Manor for 2 weeks before she saw Frederick Davenport in person. She'd caught glimpses of him. Of course, a shadow moving past a doorway, the sound of his footsteps on the stairs late at night, his coffee cup left on the study desk each morning. But the man himself remained a ghost, as elusive as the grief that haunted every corner of the mansion. Leonard had been right about the atmosphere. The house was beautiful, immaculately maintained, and utterly lifeless. Isabella worked through the rooms in silence, dusting furniture that gleamed, polishing floors that already shone, arranging fresh flowers that no one would notice. It was like tending to a museum after hours, but she didn't mind the solitude. In fact, she preferred it. There was something peaceful about moving through the empty spaces, her thoughts her own company, and the work was easy enough. Mr. Davenport was fastidious but not demanding, and Leonard had been nothing but kind. The only room she avoided was the grand parlor. She'd passed it dozens of times, always with a strange reluctance she couldn't explain. The doors were usually closed, but sometimes Leonard left them ajar, and she'd catch a glimpse of that white-shrouded shape in the center of the room. The piano, the forbidden piano, it called to her. She knew that was ridiculous. Pianos didn't call to people, but every time she walked past that room, her fingers would twitch, and that melody, her melody, would start playing in her head, the one she'd hummed all her life without knowing why. On the 15th day, Isabella made a mistake. She'd been cleaning the hallway outside the parlor, her mind wandering as she worked. The doors were open wider than usual, and afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the golden light. Without thinking, she stepped inside. The room was magnificent. High ceilings, crown molding, walls lined with built-in bookshelves, and in the center, like a sleeping giant, the covered piano. Isabella set down her cleaning supplies and approached it slowly. Her heart was pounding, though she couldn't say why. It was just a piano, just an instrument. Her hand reached out, trembling, and touched the white cloth. It was soft under her fingers, heavy with dust. "Don't touch it," Leonard had said. "Mr. Davenport is very particular about that room," but her hand was already moving, pulling back the cloth before her brain could stop her. The fabric fell away, revealing gleaming black lacquer and ivory keys that somehow, impossibly, looked perfectly maintained despite years undercover. Isabella's breath caught in her throat. She knew this piano. She knew it. That was insane. She'd never seen it before in her life, and yet, her fingers found the keys as if they'd done it 1,000 times before, and without any conscious thought, she began to play. The melody flowed from her hands like water, soft and haunting and achingly beautiful. She didn't know the name of the song, didn't know where she'd learned it. She only knew that her fingers understood something her mind didn't, and the music poured out of her like a confession. She closed her eyes, lost in the sound, in the strange sense of coming home to a place she'd never been. She didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway. She didn't see Frederick Davenport freeze in the doorway, his briefcase slipping from his hand and hitting the marble floor with a crash. She didn't notice anything at all until the music stopped, and she opened her eyes to find a man staring at her as if she were a ghost. Frederick couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't do anything but stand there, paralyzed, as the impossible unfolded before his eyes. He'd been coming back from a business meeting, his mind occupied with contracts and negotiations, when he'd heard it. That melody, Sophie's melody, the one she'd played obsessively in the months before she disappeared, the one no one else knew because it had been passed down from his wife, taught to Sophie in private moments at this very piano. It was impossible. No one knew that song. No one. But someone was playing it now. Frederick had actually run down the hall, his heart hammering against his ribs, hope and terror warring in his chest. And when he reached the parlor, when he saw the young woman at the piano, her eyes closed and her fingers dancing across the keys with the exact same gentle touch Sophie had used, the world tilted sideways. The woman opened her eyes and saw him. She jumped up from the bench, her face going pale. "Mr. Davenport, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have..." But Frederick couldn't hear her. His ears were ringing, his vision was blurring. He took a step forward, then another, moving toward her like a man in a dream. "Where?" His voice came out as barely a whisper. "Where did you learn that?" Isabella backed up a step, clearly frightened by whatever she saw in his face. "I'm sorry." "Sir, I know I wasn't supposed to touch the piano. Leonard told me. Where did you learn that song? The words came out harsher than he'd intended, almost a shout, and Isabella flinched. I don't know. You don't know? Frederick laughed. A broken, desperate sound. You just happened to sit down and play a melody that no one else in the world knows. You expect me to believe that? I'm not lying. Isabella's voice shook, but there was steel underneath the fear. I've always known that song, for as long as I can remember. It's the only thing I can play. I don't know where it came from. I don't know who taught me. I just know it. Frederick stared at her, really seeing her for the first time. Dark eyes, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, late 20s, probably slim build. Nothing about her appearance seemed familiar, and yet she played Sophie's song. How old are you? The question came out before he could stop it. Isabella blinked, confused by the change in topic. 28. Why? 28. Sophie would be 28 now, if she were alive, if she'd grown up somewhere, somehow, without him. Do you... Frederick's throat was so tight he could barely force the words out. Do you remember your childhood? What? I don't understand. Do you remember your childhood? He was shouting again. He knew it, but he couldn't stop himself. 18 years of grief and rage and desperate hope were pouring out of him, and this woman, this stranger who played his daughter's song, was standing in the center of it all. Isabella's eyes filled with tears, but she held her ground. No, I don't remember anything before I was 10 years old. I grew up in an orphanage. They found me alone at a bus station, and I couldn't tell them my name or where I came from. Is that what you want to hear? Frederick's legs gave out. He collapsed into a nearby chair, his whole body shaking. 10 years old, no memory, found alone. It was impossible. It was impossible. But the song, Mr. Davenport. Isabella's voice was gentler now, concerned. Are you all right? Should I call Leonard? No. Frederick forced himself to look at her again. No, I'm fine. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. It's okay. I shouldn't have touched the piano. They stood there in awkward silence, the afternoon sun still streaming through the windows, the piano sitting between them like a bridge between two worlds. Finally, Frederick spoke again, his voice carefully controlled. That song, my daughter used to play it before she disappeared. Understanding dawned on Isabella's face. Oh, Mr. Davenport, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. How could you have? He stood up slowly, feeling every one of his 55 years. It's not your fault. I'm the one who should apologize for frightening you. You didn't frighten me. It was a lie, and they both knew it. But Frederick appreciated the kindness behind it. He moved toward the door, then stopped and turned back. Miss Martinez, would you play it again, just once more? Isabella hesitated, then nodded and returned to the piano bench. Her fingers found the keys, and once more the melody filled the room. Soft, haunting, heartbreakingly familiar. Frederick closed his eyes and listened, and for the first time in 18 years, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt hope. When the music ended, he opened his eyes to find Isabella watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Thank you, he said quietly, and left the room before she could see the tears on his face. Behind him, Isabella sat at the piano, her own tears falling onto the ivory keys, not understanding why her heart was breaking for a man she barely knew, or why the melody felt less like a song and more like a memory she couldn't quite reach. Frederick didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that melody, Sophie's melody, flowing from Isabella's fingers as if it had always belonged to her. By 3 a.m, he'd given up on sleep entirely. He sat in his study with a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. Staring at the wooden box that held Sophie's things, the photograph on top showed her at the piano. Small hands stretched across the keys, tongue poking out in concentration. He picked up his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he needed. Leonard answered on the second ring, his voice alert despite the hour. Mr. Davenport, is everything all right? I need you to find out everything you can about Isabella Martinez. Everything. Where she grew up, where she's been, who she's known. I don't care what it costs. There was a pause. Sir, if this is about the piano incident, I assure you, it's not about the piano. Frederick's voice cracked. Leonard, She played Sophie's song, the one my wife taught her. No one else knew that melody. No one. Another pause, longer this time. When Leonard spoke again, his voice was careful. "What are you thinking, sir?" "I don't know what I'm thinking. That's why I need you to find out about her. Can you do it?" "Of course, sir. I'll start first thing in the morning." "Thank you." Frederick ended the call and finally took a sip of the whiskey. It burned going down, but the pain was welcome. It was something real in a world that suddenly felt like it was built on quicksand. Could it be possible? Could Isabella be? No, that was insane. Sophie had disappeared 18 years ago. The chances of her being alive, of her somehow ending up here, working in his own house, it was too impossible to even consider. But the song, God, the song. Frederick pulled out his laptop and opened a folder he rarely looked at anymore. The one containing every piece of information from Sophie's case. Police reports, missing person flyers, investigator notes, witness statements that had led nowhere. He'd read through it all 1,000 times over the years, searching for something he'd missed, some clue that would bring his daughter home. He'd never found anything. The trail had gone cold within weeks. Sophie had simply vanished, like she'd never existed at all, until now. Until a young woman with no memory had walked into his house and played his daughter's song. The next morning, Frederick found himself doing something he hadn't done in years. He paid attention to his household. He positioned himself in the hallway outside the parlor, pretending to review documents on his phone while actually watching Isabella work. She moved through the rooms with quiet efficiency, her presence barely noticeable. But Frederick noticed everything now. The way she tilted her head when she was concentrating. The way she hummed softly while she worked. Not the melody, thankfully. Just random tunes. The way she paused sometimes, staring at objects with a confused expression, as if trying to remember something just out of reach. Was he seeing what he wanted to see? Or was there really something familiar about her? Leonard found him there at noon, still watching. "Sir, I have some preliminary information." Frederick nearly dropped his phone. "Already. I made some calls." Leonard handed him a manila folder. "Miss Martinez's employment history is straightforward. Various hotels and cleaning services over the past 8 years. References check out. She's reliable, hardworking, keeps to herself. But her history before that is sparse." Frederick opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were photocopies of documents, job applications, a driver's license, social security card. But Leonard was right. Everything started 8 years ago, when Isabella would have been 20. Before that, there was almost nothing. "I spoke with someone at St. Catherine's Home for Children in Providence," Leonard continued quietly. "That's where she grew up. She was brought there when she was 10 years old, found alone at a bus station in April of 2006. She couldn't tell them her name or where she'd come from. They listed her as a Jane Doe until she eventually chose the name Isabella Martinez for herself. April 2006. The same month Sophie disappeared, the same age. Frederick's vision blurred. Did they say which bus station? Central Station in Providence. Providence was 2 hours from here. 2 hours from where Sophie had vanished that rainy morning. "There's more, sir." Leonard's voice was gentle. "The woman I spoke to, Mrs. Chen, the director. She remembered Isabella quite clearly. She said the girl arrived with no physical injuries but was clearly traumatized. Wouldn't speak for weeks. And when she finally did start talking, she had no memory of anything before waking up at that bus station. Amnesia," Frederick whispered. "That's what the doctors concluded. Either trauma-induced or the result of some kind of accident. They never determined which. She underwent therapy for years, but the memories never returned." Frederick sat down heavily in a nearby chair. It all fit, every piece of it. The age, the timing, the location, the amnesia, and the song. God, the song. "Sir?" Leonard's hand rested on his shoulder. "I know what you're thinking, but you can't jump to conclusions. Coincidences happen. This could be. Do you believe in coincidences like this?" Frederick looked up at his old friend. A girl the exact same age as Sophie. Found at the exact time Sophie disappeared in the same general area, with complete memory loss, and the ability to play a song that only Sophie knew. Leonard was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want to do?" "I need a DNA test. Can you arrange it? Discreetly. Of course, I'll contact a private lab. That night, while Isabella slept, Frederick stood outside her room with a pair of tweezers and a plastic bag. He felt like a criminal, sneaking through his own house, but he couldn't risk asking her directly. Not yet. Not until he knew for sure. He found what he needed on her hairbrush. Several strands with the roots still attached. His hands shook as he sealed them in the bag. Tomorrow, Leonard would take them to the lab along with a sample of Frederick's own DNA. And then they would know, one way or another. Meanwhile, Isabella was having the dreams again. They'd started the night she played the piano, and they came every night now. Vivid, terrifying. Fragments of a life she didn't recognize. A garden with white roses. A woman's laugh, warm and loving. A man's voice calling a name she couldn't quite hear. And always, the sound of that melody drifting through halls she'd never walked. She woke up gasping, her sheets soaked with sweat, her heart pounding. The images faded as soon as she opened her eyes, leaving only a sense of loss so profound it made her chest ache. What was happening to her? She'd lived with the blank space of her early childhood for 18 years. She'd made peace with not knowing where she came from or who she'd been. But now, in this house, something was waking up inside her. Memories that weren't memories. Feelings that had no source. It terrified her. The next afternoon, Isabella found herself drawn back to the parlor. She shouldn't go in. Mr. Davenport had been so upset last time. But the pull was irresistible. She stood in the doorway, staring at the piano. The white cloth had been replaced. You can play it if you want. Isabella spun around to find Frederick standing behind her. He looked different today. Less haunted, but more intense. Like he was studying her for clues to a puzzle only he could see. I don't want to upset you again, she said carefully. You won't. I'd like to hear it actually, if you're willing. Isabella moved to the piano slowly, pulled back the cloth, and sat down. Her fingers found the keys, and the melody flowed out. The same gentle, haunting tune that felt more like breathing than playing. When she finished, she turned to find Frederick watching her with tears streaming down his face. Mr. Davenport, that song, he said quietly, was taught to my daughter by her mother. No one else knew it. It was their special thing, and you play it exactly the way Sophie did. Isabella's hands fell to her lap. I don't understand. Neither do I. But I'm going to find out. He stepped closer, his eyes searching her face. Tell me about your dreams, Isabella. Do you have them? Her breath caught. How could he know? Yes, since I came here. Gardens and music and voices I can't quite hear. Frederick nodded. Like this confirmed something. I think you should know something. My daughter disappeared 18 years ago. She was 10 years old. Her name was Sophie Davenport. The room tilted. Isabella gripped the edge of the piano bench. The same month you were found, Frederick continued. The same age, with no memory and no identity. That's just a coincidence, Isabella whispered, but even she didn't believe it. Maybe, Frederick's voice was thick with emotion, but I need to know for sure. Would you be willing to take a DNA test? Isabella looked at this man, this stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger at all, and felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crack apart. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, I'll take the test. The DNA samples had been sent to the lab 3 days ago. Frederick had paid extra for rush processing, but still, they'd said it would take at least a week. Every hour felt like an eternity. In the meantime, he found himself unable to stay away from Isabella. He didn't want to unsettle her. God knows she already looked at him like he might be losing his mind. But he needed to observe her, to catalog every gesture and expression, searching for Sophie in the woman she'd become. He started taking his coffee in the kitchen instead of his study, started working in rooms where Isabella was cleaning, started asking her questions, casual ones, he hoped, about her life, her memories, anything she could remember. She answered patiently. Though he could see the confusion and hope warring in her eyes, she wanted to believe it too. He could tell, but she was also terrified of what it might mean. They were sitting in the library on Thursday afternoon, Frederick pretending to read while Isabella dusted the bookshelves. When they heard the front door open, Frederick, are you home? Frederick's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. Margaret, his sister, swept into the library moments later, impeccably dressed as always in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Isabella made in a month, at 52. Margaret Davenport was still beautiful in that calculated, high-maintenance way. Every hair in place, every detail perfect. She'd never married, never had children, content to live off the family fortune and wait patiently for Frederick to die so she could inherit everything. Not that she'd ever admit that out loud. "There you are," Margaret said, air kissing his cheek. "I've been calling you all week. Don't you check your messages?" "I've been busy." "So I see." Margaret's eyes slid to Isabella, who'd frozen mid-dust, clearly uncertain whether to stay or go. "And who is this?" "Isabella Martinez, the new housekeeper." Frederick kept his voice neutral. "Isabella, this is my sister, Margaret Davenport. Pleased to meet you, ma'am." Isabella gave a small nod. Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Charming. Tell me, Isabella, where did you work before coming here?" "Various hotels in the area, ma'am." "And you're happy here? It must be terribly isolating, living in this big old house with just my brother and Leonard for company." There was something in Margaret's tone that Frederick didn't like. Something sharp underneath the pleasant veneer. "I prefer quiet, actually," Isabella said. "If you'll excuse me, I should finish up in the other rooms." She left quickly, and Frederick watched his sister watch her go, a calculating expression on her face that made his skin crawl. "She's pretty," Margaret said once Isabella was out of earshot, in a simple, girl-next-door sort of way. "Margaret, why are you here?" "I can't visit my only brother." She settled into one of the leather chairs, crossing her legs. "I worry about you. Frederick, you spend all your time alone in this mausoleum. It's not healthy." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You haven't been fine since Sophie." She caught herself. "Since the incident. But it's been 18 years. Don't you think it's time to move on?" Frederick's jaw clenched. "Move on. You make it sound so simple." "I'm not saying forget her. I'm saying you need to start living again. Sell this house. Travel. Find someone. Have a life." "I have a life." "No, you have an existence. There's a difference." Margaret leaned forward, her expression softening in what she probably thought was sisterly concern. "I just want you to be happy, Frederick. That's all I've ever wanted." What she wanted, Frederick thought bitterly, was for him to die without any other heirs so she could inherit his fortune. He'd known that for years, though he'd never called her on it. She was his only family, or at least she had been until now, maybe. "I appreciate your concern," he said stiffly, "but I'm doing just fine." Margaret studied him for a long moment, and Frederick had the uncomfortable feeling she could see right through him. She'd always been good at reading people, at sensing weakness and exploiting it. "You're different," she said finally. "Something's changed." "What is it?" "Nothing's changed. Don't lie to me, Frederick. I've known you your entire life. Something's going on." Her eyes narrowed. "It's the girl, isn't it? The housekeeper? What's special about her?" "Nothing is special about her. She's an employee." "Then why are you spending so much time with her?" "Don't think I haven't noticed. You've barely left the house this week, which isn't like you at all." Frederick stood up. "Done with this conversation? I don't have to explain my actions to you, Margaret." "No, but you should be careful." Margaret rose as well, smoothing her skirt. "Young women with no family and no prospects can be very opportunistic, especially around wealthy widowers." The implication was clear, and it made Frederick's blood boil. "Get out! Frederick! I said get out! Isabella is none of your business. My life is none of your business." Margaret's mask slipped for just a moment, and Frederick saw the calculation in her eyes, the cold fury. Then it was gone, replaced by hurt innocence. "I was only trying to help," she said softly. "But fine, I'll go. Just promise me you'll be careful. I'd hate to see you get hurt." She left in a cloud of expensive perfume, and Frederick collapsed back into his chair, his hands shaking with rage. That evening, Leonard found him in the study. "Your sister was here today." "I know. I was the lucky recipient of her visit. She cornered me in the kitchen on her way out, asked a lot of questions about Miss Martinez." Frederick's head snapped up. "What kind of questions?" "Where she came from. How long she's been here. Whether you'd taken any special interest in her." Leonard's expression was troubled. I didn't tell her anything, of course. But sir, she's suspicious. And when your sister gets suspicious, she tends to act. Let her." Frederick's voice was hard. "I don't care what Margaret thinks. Perhaps you should care, if Isabella is who you think she is. If the DNA test confirms it, your sister stands to lose a significant inheritance. She won't take that well." Frederick hadn't thought of it that way. For 18 years, Margaret had been his only living relative, his sole heir. If Sophie was alive, if Isabella really was his daughter, then Margaret would get nothing. And Margaret had never been good at accepting nothing. "Have security monitor the gates," Frederick said. "I don't want Margaret coming back here unannounced." "Already done, sir." Meanwhile, across town in her luxury apartment, Margaret Davenport poured herself a glass of wine and opened her laptop. Something was going on with Frederick. Something involving that little nobody he'd hired as a housekeeper. She'd seen the way he looked at Isabella. Not with attraction. God, at least he wasn't that pathetic. But with something worse. Hope. Like she was some kind of answer to a question he'd been asking for years. Margaret pulled up a search browser and typed in, "Isabella Martinez Providence." Several results came up. Social media profiles. Employment records. The usual digital footprint. Nothing particularly interesting. But then Margaret thought of something else. She opened a new tab and searched for Sophie Davenport missing 2006. The old articles appeared, the ones that had made headlines for months before the story went cold. 10-year-old girl vanishes from wealthy family. No leads, no suspects, no body. Margaret stared at Sophie's school photo. Dark eyes, dark hair. 10 years old. Then she pulled up Isabella's driver's license photo from a background check site. Dark eyes, dark hair, 28 years old. The same age Sophie would be if she were alive. No, Margaret whispered to the empty apartment. No, that's impossible. But what if it wasn't? She picked up her phone and called a private investigator she'd used before for delicate matters. He answered on the third ring. "James, it's Margaret Davenport. I need you to dig into someone for me deep. I want to know everything. Where she's been, who she's known, every single detail you can find. And I need it fast." She gave him Isabella's information and hung up. Her mind racing. If that girl was Sophie, if Frederick had somehow found his daughter after all these years, then Margaret's comfortable life was over. No inheritance, no security, nothing. But she wouldn't let that happen. She'd worked too hard, waited too long to let some nobody steal what was rightfully hers. Margaret finished her wine and smiled. She'd dealt with threats before. This would be no different. Isabella Martinez, or whoever she really was about to discover that getting between Margaret Davenport and her money was a very dangerous game. And Margaret always won. The call came on a Tuesday morning, exactly 10 days after Frederick had submitted the DNA samples. He was in his study when his phone rang, and he nearly dropped it picking up. "Hello? Mr. Davenport, this is Dr. Chen from Genelab Diagnostics. I have your test results." Frederick's heart stopped. The room tilted. He gripped the edge of his desk to steady himself. "And the results show a 99.198% probability of paternal relationship, Mr. Davenport. The subject is almost certainly your biological daughter." The phone slipped from Frederick's hand. He heard Dr. Chen's voice, tinny and distant, calling his name, but he couldn't respond, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at the photograph of Sophie on his desk, her smile frozen in time, forever 10 years old. She was alive. His daughter was alive. After 18 years of searching, of hoping, of dying a little more each day, she'd been here all along, working in his house, sleeping under his roof, right here. Frederick's vision blurred with tears. He picked up the phone with shaking hands. "I'm here," he managed to choke out. "I'm sorry, I understand, Mr. Davenport. This must be overwhelming. I'm emailing you the full report now, if you have any questions. Thank you. Thank you so much." Frederick ended the call and buried his face in his hands. The sobs came then. 18 years of grief and loss and unbearable pain pouring out of him in great, wrenching waves. Sophie was alive. His little girl was alive. But even through the joy, a darker thought crept in. Where had she been? What had happened to her? Who had taken her? And why couldn't she remember? Those questions would have to wait right now. He needed to tell her, to tell Isabella, Sophie, the truth. He found Leonard first, showed him the report with trembling hands. The old butler read it twice, then looked up with tears streaming down his weathered face. "Dear God," Leonard whispered. "It's really her. Miss Sophie is home. I need to tell her. Where is she?" "The garden, I believe. She's been spending a lot of time there lately." Frederick walked through the house in a daze. Everything looked different now, brighter, more alive. His daughter was here, after all this time. She was finally home. He found Isabella, Sophie, kneeling by the rose beds, pulling weeds with her bare hands. The afternoon sun caught her hair, turning it almost auburn, and for a moment, Frederick could see the 10-year-old girl she'd been, playing in the same garden while her mother watched from the porch. "Isabella!" She looked up, and something in his expression made her stand quickly, brushing dirt from her jeans. "Mr. Davenport, is everything okay? I got the results." His voice cracked. "From the DNA test." Isabella went very still. "And you're my daughter, you're Sophie. The test confirms it. 99,098% certainty." The words tumbled out of him. "You're my little girl. You've been alive all this time, and I didn't know. I couldn't find you. But you're here now, you're finally home." Isabella stumbled backward, her face draining of color. "No, that's impossible." "It's not impossible. It's true." Frederick pulled the report from his pocket, his hands still shaking. "Look, the science doesn't lie. You're Sophie Davenport. You're my daughter." She took the paper but didn't look at it. Her eyes were wide, terrified, like a cornered animal. "I don't understand. How can I be her? I don't remember. The amnesia. Something happened to you. Something that made you forget. But your body remembers. Your hands remember the piano. Some part of you always knew." "No!" Isabella shook her head violently. "No, this is crazy. I'm not. I can't be." But even as she said it, something was breaking open inside her. The dreams that had haunted her every night since she'd arrived at this house. The inexplicable familiarity of the rooms. The way her fingers had found that melody without thought. The garden. God. The garden. She looked around wildly, and suddenly it all came rushing back. Not in fragments this time, but in a flood. Vivid, overwhelming, undeniable. Playing hide-and-seek behind these rose bushes while Daddy counted. Scraping her knee on that stone path, and crying while Mommy cleaned it up. Picking flowers for the dinner table. Running through the sprinklers on hot summer days. The way the light looked at sunset, painting everything gold. The piano, learning the melody with Mommy's hands guiding hers. "Just like this, sweetheart. Gentle. The piano likes to be touched gently." Daddy's laugh, his strong arms lifting her up. "How's my princess today?" The last morning, rain on the windows, getting dressed for school, walking out to the car, then nothing. Just darkness and confusion and waking up in a strange place with no idea who she was. Isabella, Sophie, fell to her knees in the dirt, gasping for air. The memories crashed over her like waves. 18 years of lost time flooding back all at once. And through it all, one thought repeated itself over and over. "I'm home. I'm finally home." "Sophie." Frederick was beside her now, his hands on her shoulders. "Sophie, breathe. Just breathe." She looked up at him, really looked at him, and saw her father, not a stranger, not her employer, her father, the man who'd read her bedtime stories and kissed her scraped knees and taught her to ride a bike. "Daddy," she whispered, and the word felt like coming back to life after drowning. "Daddy, I remember everything." Frederick made a sound that was half sob, half laugh, and pulled her into his arms. Sophie clung to him, crying into his shoulder the way she used to when she was small and scared. "I've got you," Frederick kept saying over and over. "I've got you, baby girl. You're safe. You're home." They stayed like that for a long time, kneeling in the garden where Sophie had played as a child, holding each other while 18 years of separation dissolved between them. Finally, Sophie pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I don't understand what happened. How did I end up at that bus station? Who took me? Why can't I remember anything between leaving for school that morning and waking up alone and scared? I don't know, Frederick admitted, but we'll figure it out. Together. The important thing is you're here now. I worked here for weeks, Sophie said, almost laughing through her tears. I was cleaning my own house and I didn't even know it. The universe has a twisted sense of humor. Sophie looked at the mansion, her home, and felt a wave of emotion so powerful it almost knocked her over again. This was where she belonged. This was who she was. I'm Sophie Davenport, she said, testing the name out loud. It felt right. It felt like putting on a coat that had been waiting for her all along. Yes, you are. Frederick cupped her face in his hands. My beautiful, brave daughter. I never stopped looking for you. Never stopped hoping. I know. I can see it in your eyes. Sophie smiled through her tears. I'm sorry it took so long to find my way back. You're here now. That's all that matters. They walked back to the house together, Frederick's arm around Sophie's shoulders. Leonard was waiting on the porch, and when he saw them, really saw them as father and daughter, he broke down completely. Miss Sophie, he sobbed. Welcome home. Sophie hugged him fiercely. Thank you for never giving up on me, Leonard, even when I didn't know who I was. That night, they sat together in the parlor, the three of them, and talked until dawn. Sophie shared what memories had returned, the fragments of her childhood piecing themselves back together. Frederick told her about the search, the investigation, the years of not knowing. Leonard added details they'd both forgotten, moments from Sophie's childhood that made her laugh and cry at the same time. And when the first light of morning crept through the windows, Sophie sat at the piano and played the melody one more time. But this time, Frederick sat beside her, and they played it together. The song that had brought them back to each other. Neither of them knew that across town, Margaret Davenport was reading a report from her private investigator, a report that confirmed her worst fears. Neither of them knew that Margaret had already made a decision. She would not lose her inheritance to some girl with convenient amnesia and a sob story. She would fight, and she would win, whatever it took. The rumors started small, whispered in country club lounges and over expensive lunches at restaurants where Providence's elite gathered. Just suggestions, careful insinuations. Have you heard about Frederick Davenport? Apparently he's convinced his new housekeeper is his daughter who disappeared 20 years ago. How convenient that she showed up right when she's old enough to inherit everything. I heard she researched the family for months before applying for the job. Quite the little actress, apparently. Margaret was careful. She never said anything directly. She was too smart for that. But she had friends, and those friends had friends. And soon the whole town was buzzing with speculation about the opportunistic young woman who'd somehow convinced a grief-stricken widower that she was his long-lost daughter. Frederick first heard about it from his lawyer, Thomas Hartley, who called him on a Friday morning. Frederick, I'm hearing some disturbing things around town. About your daughter. Sophie, Frederick corrected automatically. He'd been calling her that for 3 days now, and it felt more right each time. Right, Sophie, look. I'm not saying I believe any of this, but people are talking. They're saying she's a con artist, that she manipulated you into believing she's Sophie when she's really just after your money. Frederick's hand tightened on the phone. That's ridiculous. We have DNA evidence, scientific proof. I know that. You know that. But does the general public know that? And more importantly, do they care, Frederick? Perception matters, especially in cases of inheritance and estate planning. If people think Sophie is fraudulent, it could complicate things significantly. Let them think what they want. The truth will speak for itself. But Thomas's warning stayed with him, and when Leonard came to him that afternoon with similar concerns, the staff at the market were talking. Sir, quite unkindly about Miss Sophie. Frederick realized the damage was spreading faster than he'd anticipated. He knew exactly who was behind it. That evening, Margaret showed up unannounced again. Frederick met her at the door and didn't invite her in. What do you want, Margaret? That's a lovely greeting for your only sister. She tried to peer past him into the house. I came to see if the rumors are true. Have you really convinced yourself that your housekeeper is Sophie? She is Sophie, we have DNA proof. Margaret's laugh was sharp and brittle. Oh, Frederick, DNA tests can be manipulated. You of all people should know that. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. A young woman with no family and no prospects shows up at your house, plays a piano song she could have learned from anywhere, and suddenly you're running DNA tests. It's textbook manipulation. Get off my property. Frederick's voice was ice. I'm trying to protect you. Can't you see that? This girl, whoever she is taking advantage of your grief. She's playing you, Frederick, and you're too blind to see it. The only person trying to take advantage of me is you. Frederick stepped forward, forcing Margaret to back up. You've been waiting 18 years for me to die so you could inherit everything. Well, guess what? Sophie's alive, which means you get nothing. And that's what this is really about, isn't it? The money? Margaret's mask slipped, just for a second, and Frederick saw the cold fury underneath. You'll regret this, when that little fraud takes everything you have and disappears. Don't come crying to me. I won't have to, because Sophie is my daughter, and nothing you say or do will change that. He slammed the door in her face, but Margaret's campaign didn't stop. If anything, it intensified. She hired James Reardon, the private investigator, to dig deeper into Isabella's past. When he came back with his report 2 days later, Margaret read it eagerly, searching for ammunition. The report was thorough. Isabella Martinez had worked at various hotels and cleaning services for 8 years. Before that, she'd lived at St. Catherine's Home for Children. Before that, nothing. She'd appeared at a bus station in April 2006, a 10-year-old girl with no memory and no identity. The timeline matched Sophie's disappearance perfectly. Too perfectly, Margaret thought. It was almost like someone had planned it that way. I need you to find witnesses, Margaret told Reardon. People who saw Isabella before she came to Frederick's house. Anyone who can testify that she was researching the Davenport family, asking questions about Sophie's disappearance. Ma'am, I looked into that. There's no evidence she knew anything about the Davenports before applying for the job. Then find some evidence, or better yet, create some. Reardon shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, I can't manufacture witnesses. That's illegal. I'm not asking you to manufacture anything. I'm asking you to be thorough. Surely there's someone, a coworker, a friend, someone who remembers her talking about the Davenports. I'll see what I can do. Meanwhile, at Davenport Manor, Sophie was struggling with her own demons. The memories had returned, but they were incomplete. She remembered her childhood clearly now. Every room in this house, every moment with her father, the sound of her mother's voice. But the day she disappeared remained a blank. One moment she was walking to the car for school, and the next she was waking up at a bus station, alone and terrified, with no idea how she'd gotten there. 18 years. Where had they gone? What if they're right? She said to Frederick one evening as they sat in the library. What if I'm not really Sophie? What if the DNA test was wrong somehow? DNA tests don't lie, sweetheart. But I don't remember what happened. What if someone took me and raised me somewhere, and I just happened to look like Sophie, and the coincidences lined up? Sophie. Frederick took her hands. Look at me. You are my daughter. I know it in my bones, in my heart. You know that melody because your mother taught it to you. You know this house because you grew up here. Your memories are real. Then why can't I remember that day? Why is there this huge blank space? Trauma does strange things to the mind. Maybe you'll remember eventually, maybe you won't, but it doesn't change who you are. Sophie wanted to believe him. She did believe him, but late at night, when the doubts crept in, she couldn't help wondering if Margaret was right. What if she was just a very convincing fraud? The breaking point came when Margaret hired a lawyer. Robert Chen was one of the best estate attorneys in the state, and Margaret paid him handsomely to find a way to contest Sophie's legitimacy. Chen filed a motion to have the DNA results independently verified, suggesting that the original test had been compromised. Frederick's lawyer, Thomas Hartley, called him immediately. Frederick, they're challenging the DNA results. They're claiming fraud. On what basis? They're arguing that you were emotionally compromised when you ordered the test, that you may have influenced the results somehow, and that an independent verification is needed to ensure accuracy. That's insane. Maybe, but it's also legal. The court is going to grant their motion. We'll need to do another test, this time with court-appointed supervisors. Frederick felt his world tilting again. How long will that take? Weeks? Maybe months? And in the meantime, Margaret is petitioning to have Sophie removed from the house, claiming she's a potential threat to your well-being. Absolutely not. Sophie stays here. She's my daughter, and this is her home. I'll fight it. Frederick, but I need you to understand. This is going to get ugly. Margaret is playing for keeps. That night, Leonard came to Frederick's study with concerning news. Sir, I found something. Someone tried to bribe one of the gardeners to say he'd seen Miss Sophie snooping around the property before she was hired. Offered him $5,000 for a written statement. Frederick's blood ran cold. Who? He didn't get a name, but the description matches someone who works for Margaret's investigator. Did the gardener take the money? No, sir. He told them to get lost and came straight to me. But sir, if they're trying to buy witnesses, what else might they be doing? Frederick stood up, his jaw set. Enough. I'm done playing defense. It's time to go on the offensive. He picked up his phone and called Thomas Hartley. Thomas, I want you to prepare a complete case file proving Sophie's identity. DNA evidence, medical records, testimony from the orphanage, everything. We're not going to wait for them to attack us. We're going to present the truth so thoroughly, so completely, that there won't be any room for doubt. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we force a confrontation, a formal hearing with lawyers, witnesses, and evidence. We settle this once and for all, and we do it in a way that destroys Margaret's credibility completely. That's risky, Frederick. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, because Sophie is my daughter, and the truth is on our side. After he hung up, Frederick found Sophie standing in the doorway. She'd heard everything. Are you sure about this? She asked quietly. Maybe it would be easier if I just left. Disappeared again. No. Frederick crossed to her and gripped her shoulders. You are not disappearing again. I lost you once, and I am not losing you a second time. We face this together, Sophie, as father and daughter, and we win. Sophie searched his face, then nodded. Okay, together. Outside, storm clouds were gathering, but inside Davenport Manor, father and daughter stood united, ready for whatever came next. The war with Margaret was just beginning. Thomas Hartley arrived at Davenport Manor the next morning with 2 assistants and enough legal documents to fill 3 briefcases. Frederick had cleared the dining room table, and they spread everything out like generals planning a military campaign. All right, Thomas said, pulling out a yellow legal pad. Let's go through what we have and what we need. Frederick sat at the head of the table with Sophie beside him. She looked nervous but determined, her hand clasped tightly in his. First, the DNA evidence, Thomas continued. We have the original test showing 99,098% probability of paternal relationship. That's solid. But Margaret's lawyers are going to argue it was compromised. So we need a second test, this one court-supervised with no possibility of tampering. Already arranged, Frederick said. We're going to the lab tomorrow morning. Court-appointed technician will oversee the entire process. Good. Second, we need to establish a clear timeline. Sophie disappeared in April 2006 at age 10. Isabella Martinez appeared at a bus station in Providence that same month at the same age. We need documentation of both events. Sophie spoke up quietly. I can get records from St. Catherine's Mrs. Chen, the director. She kept detailed files on all of us. She'll help. I know she will. Perfect. I'll need those ASAP. Thomas made a note. Third, and this is crucial, we need to explain the piano. That melody is your strongest piece of circumstantial evidence. No one else knew it, correct? My wife taught it to Sophie, Frederick confirmed. It was something passed down in her family. There's no recording of it, no sheet music. It existed only in their memories. Do we have any witnesses to Sophie learning it? Anyone who heard her play it before she disappeared. Frederick thought hard. Leonard? He heard her practicing it constantly. And there might be... Wait. He stood up suddenly. I recorded her, not professionally, just on my phone. She was so proud of learning it that I captured a video of her playing. I'd forgotten all about it. Thomas leaned forward. You have video of Sophie playing that melody, from before she disappeared. Yes, it should still be on my old phone. I never deleted anything from that time. Find it. That video could be the smoking gun we need. While Thomas and his team continued building the case, Sophie excused herself and went to call Mrs. Chen at St. Catherine's. She found a quiet corner in the library and dialed the number she'd memorized years ago. St. Catherine's Home for Children. This is Elizabeth Chen speaking. Mrs. Chen, it's Isabella Martinez. Sophie Davenport? There was a pause. Isabella, sweetheart. What's going on? I got a call from some investigator asking questions about you. He made it sound like you were in trouble. Sophie quickly explained everything. The job at the mansion, the piano, the DNA test, the memories returning. Mrs. Chen listened without interrupting, and when Sophie finished, the older woman was crying. "Oh, my dear girl," Mrs. Chen whispered. "All these years, you had a father looking for you, a home waiting for you, and you never knew. I need your help, Mrs. Chen. I need documentation proving when I arrived at St. Catherine's, medical records, admission forms, anything you have. Of course, I'll gather everything and courier it to you today, Isabella. Sophie. I'm so happy for you. To finally know who you are, where you came from. That's all any of us ever wanted for you." After hanging up, Sophie sat for a moment, overwhelmed with emotion. Mrs. Chen had been the closest thing to a mother she'd known for 18 years, and now she was about to reclaim her real family, her real identity. It felt like being torn in two. "Sophie," Frederick appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" "Yeah, just processing. Mrs. Chen is sending the records." Frederick sat beside her. "This must be incredibly strange for you. One day, you're Isabella Martinez, living a simple life, and the next you're Sophie Davenport with a complicated past and an even more complicated present. I keep wondering what happened to me," Sophie admitted. "That day, I disappeared. Someone took me, right? Someone erased my memory and left me at that bus station. But who? And why? I don't know. But once this is settled with Margaret, I promise you we'll find out. We'll hire the best investigators, use every resource I have. We'll get answers." That afternoon, while Thomas and his team worked on the legal strategy, Sophie and Frederick went through old photo albums. Leonard had kept them all, perfectly preserved, documenting Sophie's childhood in meticulous detail. "Look at this one," Frederick said, smiling through his tears. "Your 5th birthday party. You insisted on a dinosaur cake because you were going through a paleontologist phase." Sophie stared at the photo, a little girl with gap-toothed grin, wearing a party hat, surrounded by dinosaur decorations. She remembered that day now, remembered the cake, the presents, the way her mother had laughed when she roared like a T-Rex. "I was so weird," she said, laughing. "You were perfect." They found more. Sophie's first day of school, Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings, random Tuesday afternoons, a whole life documented in photographs. A life Sophie was slowly reclaiming. And then Frederick found the video. His hands shook as he scrolled through his old phone, searching for the recording he'd made 9 months before Sophie disappeared. And there it was, dated July 2005. He pressed play. The video was grainy, shot from across the room. But there she was, 10-year-old Sophie sitting at the piano, her tongue sticking out in concentration as her small hands moved across the keys. The melody flowed from her fingers, gentle and perfect. And then, at the end, she looked up at the camera and grinned. "Did you get it, Daddy? Did you film me playing Mama's song?" "I got it, Princess." Frederick's voice came from off-screen, thick with pride and love. "You played it beautifully." The video ended. Sophie and Frederick stared at each other, both crying. "That's me," Sophie whispered. "That's really me. That's really you," Frederick confirmed. "And when we play this in court, there won't be any question. Everyone will see it. Everyone will know." Thomas was thrilled when Frederick showed him the video. "This is perfect. We compare this recording to Isabella playing the same melody, and the connection is undeniable. Not just the song itself, but the technique. The touch, the way her fingers move. It's distinctive. Should we record Sophie playing it now?" Frederick asked. "Absolutely. And I want a musicologist to analyze both recordings, provide expert testimony that the playing style is consistent with the same person at different ages over the next week." They built their case piece by piece. The court-supervised DNA test was completed, results pending. Mrs. Chen couriered the files from St. Catherine's, including intake photos of a terrified 10-year-old girl who looked exactly like Sophie had at that age. The musicologist studied both videos and provided a detailed report, confirming the distinctive playing style was consistent. Frederick's team also found the nurse who'd examined Isabella when she first arrived at the orphanage. She remembered the case vividly. A child with complete retrograde amnesia. No physical injuries, but clearly traumatized. Her testimony would be crucial. But Margaret wasn't sitting idle. Her investigator, James Reardon, had finally found someone willing to talk. For a price, Marcus Webb, a former co-worker of Isabella's at one of the hotels, agreed to sign a statement claiming Isabella had asked him questions about the Davenport family months before applying for the job. It was a lie. Of course, Marcus had never met Isabella before in his life, but Margaret was paying him $10,000 for his testimony, and Marcus had gambling debts that weren't going to pay themselves. Margaret also found a psychiatrist willing to testify that recovered memories were notoriously unreliable, that Sophie's memories could be false, implanted by suggestion and wishful thinking, and she filed a motion questioning Frederick's mental competence, suggesting that his grief had made him vulnerable to manipulation and that he wasn't thinking clearly. "They're playing dirty," Thomas told Frederick during one of their strategy sessions. "Really dirty. Then we play cleaner. We present the truth so overwhelmingly that their lies can't stand up to scrutiny." The hearing was scheduled for the following week. It would take place in a private conference room, rather than an open courtroom. Frederick had insisted on that to protect Sophie from media attention. But everyone would be there. Frederick and Sophie, Margaret and her lawyers, witnesses for both sides, and a judge to oversee the proceedings. 1 week to prepare, 1 week to gather their strength, 1 week until they faced Margaret and her army of lies. On the night before the hearing, Sophie couldn't sleep. She found Frederick in the library, also awake, staring at the fire. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified. What if they don't believe us? What if Margaret wins?" "She won't win. The truth is on our side." "Sophie, DNA doesn't lie. That video doesn't lie. Your memories don't lie. But what if—" "No what ifs." Frederick pulled her close. "Tomorrow, we walk into that room as father and daughter, and we don't walk out until everyone knows that's exactly what we are." "Okay." Sophie nodded against his shoulder. "Okay. I love you, Sophie. I never stopped loving you, not for 1 second of those 18 years, and I'm not going to let anyone take you away from me again. I love you too, Dad." They sat together by the fire until dawn, gathering their strength for the battle ahead. Tomorrow, everything would be decided. Tomorrow, they would either win their family back or lose it forever. The conference room at Hartley & Associates was designed for exactly this kind of proceeding. Neutral territory where families could settle disputes away from public scrutiny. Large windows overlooked downtown Providence, and the long mahogany table could seat 20 people comfortably. Today, it felt like a courtroom. Judge Patricia Morrison sat at the head of the table, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd been appointed to oversee this private hearing, and her reputation for fairness was legendary. Frederick and Sophie sat on one side with Thomas Hartley and his team. Across from them, Margaret sat with her lawyer, Robert Chen, her face a mask of concerned innocence. Behind them were the witnesses: Mrs. Chen from the orphanage, Leonard Price, the nurse who'd examined Isabella 18 years ago, and the musicologist who'd analyzed the piano recordings. On Margaret's side sat Marcus Webb, looking nervous, and Dr. Harrison, the psychiatrist she'd hired. "Let's begin," Judge Morrison said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Mr. Hartley, you've brought this hearing to establish definitively that Isabella Martinez is, in fact, Sophie Davenport, the daughter of Frederick Davenport who disappeared in April 2006. Please present your case." Thomas stood, confident and prepared. "Thank you, Your Honor. The evidence we're about to present is comprehensive and irrefutable. First, the DNA results." He handed copies to the judge. 2 separate tests, both court-supervised, both showing 99.9998% probability that Frederick Davenport is Isabella Martinez's biological father. The second test was conducted under strict chain of custody protocols with 0 possibility of contamination or manipulation. Judge Morrison studied the documents carefully. Margaret's lawyer, Robert Chen, leaned forward. Your Honor, while DNA evidence is compelling, it doesn't tell us the whole story. It doesn't explain how this young woman came to be in Mr. Davenport's employ, how she knew certain intimate details about the family. We'll get to that, Thomas interrupted smoothly. Next, I'd like to present timeline evidence. He projected 2 sets of documents on the screen. Sophie's school records and medical files from 2006, showing her last day of school was April 15th, and Isabella's intake records from St. Catherine's, showing she was found on April 17th, 2006. Just 2 days later, Sophie Davenport disappeared from this area on April 15th, Thomas explained. 2 days later, a 10-year-old girl matching her exact description was found alone at Central Station in Providence. Just 2 hours away, she had complete retrograde amnesia and couldn't tell authorities her name or where she'd come from. Objection, Robert Chen said. That's circumstantial at best. Many children could fit that description. Let me continue, Thomas said calmly. He pulled up Sophie's childhood photos alongside Isabella's intake photo from the orphanage. The resemblance was striking. Same eyes, same face shape, same small scar above the left eyebrow. Now, the piano, Thomas continued. He played the video of 10-year-old Sophie playing the melody, her little hands moving across the keys. The room was silent except for the haunting music. Then he played a recording of Isabella, Sophie, playing the same melody just 2 weeks ago. Dr. Reeves, our musicologist, has analyzed both recordings, Thomas said. Doctor, would you share your findings? Dr. Reeves, a dignified woman in her 50s, stood. The playing style in both recordings is remarkably consistent. Not just the notes themselves, but the touch, the tempo, the emotional interpretation, the subtle way the player slightly emphasizes certain phrases, the natural rubato. These are distinctive markers that remain consistent, despite 18 years between recordings. In my professional opinion, these recordings were made by the same person. But the melody itself, Robert Chen interjected, anyone could have taught her that song. Anyone could have coached her to play it the same way. No one else knew that song, Frederick said sharply. It was taught to Sophie by her mother. There's no recording of it anywhere. No sheet music. It existed only between them. Thomas nodded. Which brings us to our next witness, Mrs. Elizabeth Chen from St. Catherine's home. Mrs. Chen took her seat, her kind face serious. I remember Isabella, Sophie, very clearly. She arrived at our facility in April 2006, brought in by police who'd found her at the bus station. She was terrified, couldn't speak for days. When she finally did start talking, she had no memory of her past. We tried everything: therapy, hypnosis, working with police to identify her. Nothing worked. The memories were just gone. Did she ever mention the Davenport family? Thomas asked. Never. Not once in the 10 years she lived with us. And the piano. We had an old upright in the common room. One day, about 6 months after she arrived, I found her sitting at it. She was playing this beautiful melody, crying while she played. When I asked where she'd learned it, she said she didn't know. She just knew it. It was the only thing she could play. Judge Morrison leaned forward. And you're certain she had no exposure to information about the Davenport family? Absolutely certain. Your Honor, we didn't even know there was a connection until Mr. Davenport contacted me recently. Margaret's turn came next. Robert Chen stood, his expression grave. Your Honor, while the evidence presented is compelling on the surface, we have serious concerns about Miss Martinez's intentions. We'd like to call our witness Marcus Webb. Marcus took his seat, fidgeting nervously. Mr. Webb, you worked with Isabella Martinez at the Grandview Hotel, correct? Yeah, about 3 years ago. And did Miss Martinez ever discuss the Davenport family with you? Marcus swallowed hard. Yeah, she asked questions about them. Said she was interested in applying for a job there, wanted to know about the family, their history, stuff like that. Sophie's face went white. That's not true. I never... Thomas put a hand on her arm. Mr. Webb, how much is Margaret Davenport paying you for this testimony? Marcus's eyes widened. I don't know what you're... We have bank records, Thomas said calmly, pulling out documents. A deposit of $10,000 into your account 2 days ago from an LLC owned by Margaret Davenport. We also have testimony from 3 other employees at the Grandview Hotel who say you and Miss Martinez never worked the same shifts and, in fact, never met. The color drained from Marcus's face. Judge Morrison's expression turned thunderous. Mr. Webb, are you committing perjury in my hearing? Marcus looked at Margaret desperately, but she was staring straight ahead, her face frozen. I'm sorry. She paid me to say that. None of it's true. The room erupted. Robert Chen looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Margaret's mask finally cracked, fury flashing in her eyes. Order! Judge Morrison slammed her hand on the table. Mr. Chen, your client just attempted to suborn perjury in my hearing. I suggest you advise her very carefully about her next words. But Margaret wasn't done fighting. She stood, her voice shaking with rage. This is all very convenient, isn't it? A girl with no past suddenly remembers everything right when she stands to inherit millions. How do we know these memories are real? How do we know she's not just a very good actress who's convinced my brother? Enough. Frederick's voice cracked like a whip. He stood, pulling Sophie up with him. You want proof. Real proof. Fine. He turned to Sophie. Tell them about the scar on my hand, the one that no one knows about except family. Sophie's voice was quiet but steady. You cut it fixing my bike. I wanted the training wheels off. But you said I wasn't ready, I insisted. And you took them off, but the bolt was stuck and the wrench slipped. You needed 3 stitches. Frederick held up his right hand, showing the scar. Leonard nodded confirmation. I drove him to the emergency room that day. Miss Sophie cried because she felt responsible. Tell them about the rose garden, Frederick continued. Mom planted white roses because they were her favorite. We used to pick them together every Sunday for the dinner table. She called them Sunday roses. No one knew that, Frederick said to the room. No one except Sophie and her mother and me. Those are private family memories. Real memories. Not something she could have researched or faked. Judge Morrison studied Sophie carefully. Miss Martinez, Miss Davenport, do you have anything you'd like to say? Sophie stood, her voice stronger now. I don't remember what happened to me during those 18 years. I probably never will. But I know who I am now. I'm Sophie Davenport. This is my father. This is my home. And no amount of money or lies is going to change that. The judge was silent for a long moment. Reviewing all the documents spread before her, finally she looked up. I've heard enough. The DNA evidence is conclusive. The timeline matches perfectly. The circumstantial evidence is overwhelming, and the attempted perjury by Mrs. Davenport's witness severely damages her credibility. She turned to Margaret. Mrs. Davenport, you should be ashamed of yourself. Attempting to deny your own niece her identity and inheritance out of pure greed is despicable. Margaret opened her mouth to protest, but Judge Morrison held up her hand. I'm ruling in favor of the petitioners. Isabella Martinez is Sophie Davenport. Her legal identity will be restored, and all rights of inheritance apply. Furthermore, I'm recommending that the district attorney investigate Mrs. Davenport for witness tampering and attempted fraud. Margaret's face went crimson. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair backward. This isn't over. I'll appeal. You'll do nothing, Robert Chen said quietly, finally finding his spine. Mrs. Davenport, as your attorney, I'm advising you to accept this ruling and walk away before you make things worse for yourself. For a moment, Margaret looked like she might explode. Then she grabbed her purse and stormed out, her heels clicking angrily against the floor. The room exhaled collectively. Judge Morrison smiled, at Sophie. Welcome home, Miss Davenport. 3 weeks had passed since the hearing, and Davenport Manor was finally breathing again. The transformation was subtle but profound. Fresh flowers appeared in every room. Sophie's doing. The curtains that had been drawn for years now stood open, letting sunlight flood the hallways. Music drifted through the house again. Not just the old melody, but new songs, laughter, life. Sophie stood in her childhood bedroom, her real bedroom now, running her fingers along the bookshelf. Frederick had kept everything exactly as she'd left it 18 years ago. Her stuffed animals, her books, even her clothes still hanging in the closet, preserved like a museum to a life interrupted. We can redecorate if you want, Frederick said from the doorway. Update it, make it yours again. Sophie turned to him, smiling. I kind of love it like this. It's like having a piece of my childhood back. She picked up a worn teddy bear from the bed. Mr. Whiskers, I can't believe you kept him. I kept everything. I couldn't bear to let go of any of it." Sophie crossed to her father and hugged him tightly. These embraces still felt new, still carried the weight of 18 years of separation. But they were getting easier, more natural. "I need to tell you something," Frederick said, his voice suddenly serious. "I hired a private investigator, a good one, to look into what happened that day you disappeared." Sophie pulled back, searching his face. "Dad, we talked about this. The police investigated for years and found nothing. What makes you think? Because now we know you survived. You ended up at that bus station somehow, which means someone took you there. Someone who might have left a trail we can finally follow." He took her hands. "I need to know what happened to you, Sophie. Who took you? Why you lost your memory? Don't you want to know?" Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Did she want to know? Part of her was terrified of the answers. What if they were worse than not knowing? But another part, the part that woke up from nightmares she couldn't remember, the part that felt those 18 missing years like a phantom limb, needed closure. "Okay," she said finally, "but we do this together. Whatever we find out, we face it together. Always." Downstairs, Leonard was preparing lunch. The old butler had been practically glowing since the hearing, his step lighter, his smile more frequent. He was training Sophie to take over some of the household management, not because she needed a job anymore, but because she wanted to feel useful, to learn how her home functioned. "Mr. Leonard," Sophie said, joining him in the kitchen, "I've been thinking about something." "Yes." "Miss Sophie, I want to make a donation to St. Catherine's. A substantial one, enough to renovate the facility, hire more staff, provide better resources for the kids." Leonard smiled. "That's very generous of you. They saved my life," Sophie said simply. "Mrs. Chen, the staff there, they gave me a home when I had nothing. I want to give back. Your father will be pleased to hear it. He's been talking about doing something similar." That afternoon, Mrs. Chen visited the manor at Sophie's invitation. The elderly woman stood in the foyer, looking around with wonder. "So this is where you came from," she said softly. "It's beautiful, Sophie." "It's home," Sophie agreed. "Come on, I want to show you something." She led Mrs. Chen to the parlor, to the piano that had changed everything. "This is where it all started, where I remembered." Mrs. Chen touched the piano keys gently. "I used to watch you play at the home. You'd sit at that old upright for hours, playing the same melody over and over. I always thought it was your way of holding on to something, even though you didn't know what." "It was holding on to my mother," Sophie said. "Holding on to home. Will you play it for me one more time?" Sophie sat at the bench and played the melody that had brought her back to herself. Mrs. Chen listened with tears streaming down her face. When the last note faded, Mrs. Chen hugged Sophie tightly. "I'm so proud of you, not just for finding your way home, but for who you've become. You're strong, Sophie. Stronger than you know. I learned that from you. You taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you when you can't love yourself. And now you have both," Mrs. Chen said, smiling through her tears. "Your father by blood and your family at St. Catherine's by choice. You're very lucky." That evening, Frederick gathered Sophie and Leonard in his study. "I have news from the investigator. He found something." Sophie's heart raced. "What?" "Security footage from Central Station, from April 17th, 2006. It's grainy, but you can see a woman, mid-30s, brown hair, walking a young girl to the bus station entrance. Then she leaves, and the girl, you, sits down alone and doesn't move for hours until someone finally calls the police." "A woman," Sophie whispered. "Who was she?" "We don't know yet. The footage isn't clear enough for facial recognition. But the investigator is tracking down everyone who worked at the station that day, checking missing persons reports for women who might match the description, cross-referencing with hospital records for anyone treated for injuries around that time." "Why would she just leave me there?" Sophie's voice broke. "Why take me, erase my memory, and then abandon me?" Frederick pulled her close. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we're going to find out. I promise you that." A week later, Sophie made another decision. She contacted a journalist she trusted and told her story. Not the sensational kidnapping angle the tabloids would love, But the story of a girl who lost herself and found her way home, the story of a father who never stopped searching, the story of family, memory, and the power of love to transcend time. The article ran on the front page of the Providence Journal. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of families with missing children reached out, thanking Sophie for giving them hope. The story went national, then viral. Sophie became a symbol, not of tragedy, but of resilience and reunion. And Margaret, she disappeared from Providence society, moved to California to escape the scandal. She'd lost everything: her reputation, her social standing, and any chance of inheriting the Davenport fortune. Frederick had officially cut her out of his will, leaving everything to Sophie. But Sophie barely thought about the money or the inheritance. What mattered was the life she was building with her father. On a Saturday afternoon in early autumn, they worked together in the rose garden, replanting the beds that had gone neglected for so long. Sophie's hands were covered in dirt, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she'd never felt more at peace. "I've been thinking," Frederick said as they worked, "about the future. Your future. What about it? You can do anything you want now, Sophie. College, travel, starting a business. Whatever makes you happy, the world is open to you." Sophie sat back on her heels, considering, "I think I want to work with kids who've been through trauma. Kids like me. Maybe study psychology or social work. Use what happened to me to help others." Frederick's eyes filled with tears. "Your mother would be so proud of you. Tell me about her," Sophie said. "I have some memories, but I want to know more. Everything." So Frederick did, as they worked in the garden. He told her stories about her mother, how they met, how she laughed, how she loved with her whole heart, how she'd wanted nothing more than to watch Sophie grow up, and how devastated she would have been to miss it. "But she's here," Frederick said, touching Sophie's chest over her heart. "In you, in that melody she taught you, in the way you tilt your head when you're thinking. She's here." That night, they had dinner together, just the three of them, Frederick, Sophie, and Leonard. They talked about everything and nothing, shared stories and laughter, made plans for the future. After dinner, Sophie and Frederick found themselves in the parlor again, drawn to the piano as they so often were now. "Play with me," Sophie asked. Frederick sat beside her, and together they played the melody that had saved them both. Their hands moved in harmony, father and daughter, creating something beautiful from years of pain. When they finished, Sophie rested her head on Frederick's shoulder. "Dad, yes, sweetheart, what if we never find out what happened? What if we never know who that woman was or why she took me?" Frederick was quiet for a moment, then said, "Then we accept it. We accept that some questions don't have answers, and we focus on what we do have. Each other, this moment, this home." "You're right," Sophie smiled. "We have everything that matters." Outside, the sun set over the Davenport estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The roses in the garden bloomed white and fragrant. The house that had been silent for so long was filled with music and life again. 18 years of searching had led to this moment. 18 years of pain had transformed into hope. Frederick Davenport had his daughter back. Sophie Davenport had found her home. And Leonard Price, faithful witness to it all, could finally rest easy, knowing the family he'd served was whole again. The melody of their lives together was just beginning, and it would be beautiful, as father and daughter sat together at the piano, playing their song one more time. They both understood something profound. Some things are worth waiting for. Some loves are strong enough to survive anything, even time, even forgetting, even loss. Their story wasn't over. The mystery of those missing 18 years still waited to be solved.